City Council joint meeting with the school board to order. We have, I'm gonna call on Councilman Osina to do the approval for, Vice Mayor Sadecki's participation in the meeting for remote electronic communication.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that City Council approve Vice Mayor Pam Sabeski's request to participate in this meeting by remote electronic means pursuant to Section 6-11 of City Council's Rules of Procedure, and that the council minutes include the information required by that rule.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Osina, seconded by, was that Councilman Porto Green? Approving Vice Mayor Sabeski's participation in the City Council meeting. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Ms. Henderson, go ahead and call the roll, I guess. Can I do that without having roll call first? Okay,
Yes.
all right, I just wanna make sure I was doing it right. Ms. Henderson?
Councilmember Osina,
Yes?
Councilmember Porto Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Wolf.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for that, and now I'll call Ms. Henderson to call the roll, I guess.
Mayor Davis Younger.
Present.
Vice Mayor Sabeski,
Present.
Councilmember Wolf,
Here.
Councilmember Ellis,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Osina,
Here.
Councilmember Porto Green.
Here.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you.
And now I'll call the school board to order as a joint meeting with city council. Mrs. Garza, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Chair Seaver,
Here.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Here.
Mrs. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Hollingsworth,
Here.
Mrs. Brooks,
Here.
Mrs. Fall,
Here.
Mr. Iqbal.
On his way.
Thank you.
Did you wanna?
Yeah, I'd like to say that we appreciate this time, for our school board to meet with city council to discuss topics that affect both the city and our schools. On the agenda tonight, we will be talking about plans going forward for the new Jenny Dean School and the purchase of 8700 Centerville Road. I'd like to walk through a timeline over the past 6 months, and then we have a presentation for you as well. This spring, we were approached by the owner of our existing building that he would like to give us first right of refusal to purchase the building located at 8700 Centerville Road. On June 29th, 2022, Manassas City Public Schools governance team leaders met with the mayor, vice mayor, and city manager to inform them of the opportunity. On July 21st, 2022, council and school board met to review the terms and conditions of the purchase of 8700 Centerville Road at our joint meeting in July. August 9th, the school board of the city of Manassas voted to approve a resolution authorizing the purchase of real property pending final appropriation approval by the city council of the city of Manassas and amendment of the budget. On September 19th, at a committee of the whole, council tabled a public hearing for the purchase of 8700 Centerville Road to be discussed in future meeting. September 26th, a public hearing was opened for the proposed amendment to the FY23 operating budget for the school's real property purchase, in which no residents wish to comment. October 24th, at the city council meeting, the public hearing from September 26th was closed. Throughout this process, the seller has extended the offer to us several times. The school board remains steadfast in our decision to purchase this property and urges the council to make timely decisions to appropriate the funds. We requested to meet with council at an earlier date, but that request did not work out, and so now we are meeting at this joint session. I understand that the city council would like to review our CIP, and specifically as it pertains to new Jenny Dean and the purchase itself of 8700 Centerville Road. And we are ready to do that this evening and answer any other questions you may have.
At the last meeting, there was a request to talk about a timeline for Dean, so I want to go through that. So what you'll see here, we are still going by the July 1 of 2025, where funds would be available to start construction. So what we asked our consultant or RMM to do for us is to go back on to see when we would have to start the design phase, when we would have to go through the design development, construction documents, and then the bidding and awarding of the contract, so we will be able to start building in June to July of 2025. He's predicting a 24-month, construction timeline, and it'll take us about 2 months to actually get in to move into the building. So that would be August of 2027 that the building would be occupied by students. So what have we been doing in the meantime, and what we will be doing until we can get to the January of 2024, where the design award contracts would go out? We have started to go and visit buildings to determine what we would like to see in our new deans. We are being very specific on what schools we are going to see. We want to look at buildings that have a more vertical footprint, because we know what we'll be working with at Dean. So 2 weeks ago, we went to see 2 schools in Arlington, Fleet Elementary and Cardinal Elementary. They are both 3-story buildings. Last week, I accompanied some of our board members, not all of us were able to go to Virginia Beach, and we toured Princess Anne Middle School and Old Donation School. Again, these are 3- and 4-story buildings, because we know we would have to build up and not out on the Dean site. We also know that some of these schools that we're visiting, we would not be able to replicate because of pricing. But when talking to different architects, RIM did the Princess Anne and Old Donation, and who's the architect, Andy, for Arlington? VMDO, and then we're gonna go back on December 2nd to a school in Loudon, elementary school. Again, different architect. We want to see what the different architects are doing, so we can take some of those ideas. But when we were touring the schools last week, we were told that they were able to, and most architects can scale down any version of these schools that we saw and the features that we like. And so these are just some of the pictures that the board just wanted you to see, and then they can talk about the specific features that they saw in the buildings that they liked during our visit. So good. This is Princess Anne. There's the one in a circle, but again, it's 3 stories. This is their cafeteria. Fence that goes around it, and then this is Old Donation and how they have their kitchen forms. But again, we just wanted to show you that we actually went to those schools that have, to show you that it is 3 stories, and we're looking at schools that go up rather than out. And I'll let the board go over any specific features that they like, that they would like to share.
Would a board member like to speak to a feature of the school? Ms. Brooks?
One of the things that I came away from both of the school sites that we went to visit that is, you know, a really important aspect is that there was a lot of flexible spaces and teaching areas that can be either opened up for group work or used in various different methods that gives it to where you're taking a space that's our footprint of the school that we build, but you're able to use all of those spaces in multiple ways, so it's almost, you know, like getting that same large space, but it's condensed down, because it can be, all the space is used all the time. There's not a classroom sitting empty, there's not, you know, some wasted space under a stair. Everything is used, and it's, you know, very concise, so it was nice to see, and I know we hope to incorporate.
One thing that I liked is, they do rainwater collection at both of the schools we went to. And the rainwater comes down through a tube, and at some points in the school, it's actually visible to students. They can see the water coming down. And it goes out to a holding tank, and then it also goes out into a drainage area and ends up in a marsh area. So it's educational lessons along the way, built into the landscaping. It was impressive. Anybody else?
I'd like to add just the many different opportunities for energy savings was prominent in every single one of these buildings. You can't quite afford yet to do solar. You can have some foresight and prepare your roofs for solar. Just everything was truly thought through, every inch from the ground, from the soil, all the way up to the roof space. So they're really forward thinking. So that was impressive, aside from really truly utilizing every space there is to utilize in a very flexible way, which is very conducive in learning today and which is definitely gonna be learning in the future.
Thank you.
Council members, you have any questions about that? Oh, Mr. Osaka. I'm so
Why
shocked.
would it be any
I'm
different
so shocked, I
here?
didn't even look over there.
Dr.
You're
New.
showing me.
Could you go back to the slide that sort of had the timeline there? And I will admit, I am, well, I wear glasses and so forth, I am not, I
How's
will
your
admit.
to see my timeline?
Oh, so much better, there we go.
Can we get this?
Do we have extra copies of the
Yes, I
timeline?
wanna get that.
Yeah, this was not provided to us. Well, we got it today at 3:00. Okay.
That's fine.
We knew you'd want to have the latest and greatest, so we brought it.
Well, I'll
forward.
pass this around, so if you could, what I was interested in, I mean, you spoke to the 24-month construction period there, the paint. Could you elaborate again what the darker spaces are? I can see it on this one, but, you know, starting on the far right there, what time period we're talking and what that is?
So you're talking in January of 2024, that's when you'll start with the design contract award with the architect company. Then, for that 3-month period, you'll be working with that architect company to design what the building will look like, what special features that you're looking for. During that process, you'll also have community engagement, where we'll have, town hall-like meetings to determine what the community would like to see in the building as well. So, it's a lot of design work.
And, I'm gonna pass this way, may I? Is that, for others to see. Have you determined a approximate size, number of students you're going to be, trying to accommodate in this? Will this have additional growth space? Because
Yes.
under your flex space and everything of that sort,
So what we're
what's the
looking at,
thinking?
currently Dean has 727 kids. If you're looking to build a similar building to Baldwin in size, that would get you up to, you'll be building it for 1,042 students. We also know that building another elementary, an additional elementary school, if there's a opportunity for this city to grow, which every company that we've talked to said that there will be growth in enrollment, we would have a place to put students as we redistrict.
And then we come to always the question I'm interested in, has the number changed as you talking? And I realize you don't have, for building this, you know, we were looking at, you know, we have an arrangement where we're each putting aside a certain amount of money
Correct.
toward the goal, and then continuing and having certain growth escalators in that we put aside along the way here. But that was predicated on a certain amount. I believe it was $62 million, if
Correct.
I'm correct at this point. And recognizing things change, costs improve, get different. We've seen it over here in the city where we were doing renovation of City Hall. We had one price and we found out that was too low. So best guess of what are the numbers looking like now?
The number that we have, we're still working off of 62 million. We went back to, and what was his name? Downey and Scott, who I think we both have used, for our projects. And at this point, he said that he did not feel comfortable giving us a new price, with the way the market is right now. So he would like for it to settle before he went out and gave us a new number.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other council members? Mr. Wolf?
I think I know the answer, but, so you have not made a determination as to, is this an elementary school, is this an elementary, middle, combination like Baldwin, or anything like that?
We did did have a company, MGT, that provided us several options. We were not too thrilled with all of those options, so they're working on new options for us, to determine that. But we are working towards that decision.
Any other questions, council members?
Dr. Newman, real quick. At Baldwin Intermediate, there is room for expansion at the intermediate level, correct?
Correct.
And you may not know this off the top of your head. What kind of room for growth do we have at Baldwin Intermediate?
So, as far as numbers are concerned?
Sure.
So we're at.
Hold on, I think I can be of some help. So we value engineered out 10 classrooms
Okay.
at Baldwin
Okay.
when it was originally done. So theoretically, we could put those 10 classrooms back up there. The
Okay.
building is structurally sound enough to handle
Okay.
those 10.
So when Baldwin was designed, it was designed in line with potential growth in student numbers so that we wouldn't exceed where we are right away.
It's a possibility that we can
Okay.
add on.
Thank you. And then with the schools that, I was not able to tour the schools, but with the schools that you toured, they also had outdoor learning spaces, wasn't that
Yes.
correct? So that learning can take place inside and outside using the natural environment as well.
Correct.
Chair.
Yes, ma'am?
Madam Mayor, I don't know if it would help anyone else, but visually I found this very helpful, and when I was talking to some people on the phone, they also seemed to find it helpful, that the schools that we toured, if I were just to pass these around, like they are, they explain that the acreage of the two schools that we visited, the student capacity, which is a little bit larger than anything that we'd be looking at, and, you know, the area square footage, and I've added the years that the schools were delivered, and then, but there are hard cash figures on these sheets, if anyone's interested in me passing them around.
I would.
Looks like we might have two sets.
How's that for
Oh,
service?
Oh, look at that.
Wow.
So you're welcome to look at all of the brochure, but the salient points for this discussion I thought were on the back.
So completion is what date again? I apologize, I was writing as you were talking.
This, if we start July 1, June, July of 2025, with 24 months of construction, and then the 2 months to move in, we would be able to move in for the start of the 27 school year.
And so right now, the 62 million holds no other information. I mean, that's kind of where we are with that. But they can come
We're
back. You're
following your
saying-
plan, so.
But, no, but you were saying, they
So-
said they can't give us a I mean, that's
We
where
went
we
back
are.
Right.
After one of the meetings that we had, not the joint meeting,
Right.
to discuss about what would it look like now. And when we went to, Downey and Scott, he said he did not feel comfortable with the landscape of the business right now to give us that.
Mr. Smith?
In relation to that question and to Councilman Singer's question, and very much can understand your response, and I think we all could have anticipated that the engineer and architect would not give you a nailed down answer. But all of that implies that even we should anticipate an increase in cost. Now, I'm not asking school board to be Nostradamus or anything like that for the future, but is there, for want of a better term, some consideration for something we could call, not, rainy day term is not the answer, but it's not the word I'm looking for, but is there some potential funding or potential consideration? You anticipate it's gonna be higher, the engineer service pictures hand is gonna be higher than 62 million. Are there plans to prepare for that, fund set aside, additional fundraisers, or any kind of thinking of that nature?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Smith, with all due respect to you and the council, if you say that we have 62 million to build a school, we're gonna work with the architects on a $62 million school. what we have to do.
I shouldn't focus too much on these pictures in this book.
So as I stated up there, you can scale down, or you can take specific features that you would like to see in your building, but it's like anything else with a budget. So, the council will tell us how much we have to build this school, and we will work with companies to build a school that
And
amount.
then,
Okay.
That's a part of the deal.
any other questions, comments on that?
Ms.
Ms. Owens?
Do we have anything in writing with that, $62 million written down, like a contract or an estimate or a letter of intent or anything like that?
No. That number was,
It's just word of mouth, right?
it was actually produced before my time, so I'm not sure where that number came from.
So that 62 million was before you came on board, that's the, what
So,
they,
let me just sort of explain to you how we got to the $62 million, okay? So, at the time, and I think even to this day, we're really not certain what school we're gonna build at the Dean, school site. Are we gonna build a duplicate of Baldwin? Or are we gonna go to some of these others that they've shown you tonight, or some of the school that we had in Loudon? What are we gonna build? Well, we knew we have all the documents and everything for Baldwin. So we took the Baldwin school, went to Downey and Scott, and said, I want you to tell us what this school's going to cost us if we start break ground on 2025. They escalated the cost from that time period. They escalated the cost out till that time and projected what we thought we would be. So that's how we got to the 62 million. Then we started working with the city to develop a plan to be able to have funding to get to that $62 million. Now, since that time, we know things have changed, right? Inflation, other things have happened, supply chain issues, all of that has happened since that time. So I went back to Downey and Scott and said, look, I'm not sure 62 million is the right number anymore. Can we have an updated number? He said, look, you know, the market is really crazy right now. Supply chain issues are a mess. I can take your money, but it's not gonna be worthwhile to you. The Fed is increasing the interest rates all the time, making dramatic increases. We'll see. We need to wait at least a year before I can give you another estimate to, once the market settles down and the Fed rates have taken full effect. And we'll see where you are at that time. So all we have to go on now is the 62 million, the plan that we've done, and I think we fully funded. And we're ready, and we're waiting for the school board and others to go and look at schools and determine exactly what they would like to see at the Dean School site.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, Ms. McCoven.
Hi. So when you're thinking about changing Jenny Dean from a purely elementary school footprint to something like Baldwin, have we done any surveys of our parents? Because when I was door knocking for re-election this year, there were a lot of people who were not happy with our school setup, going, like, elementary school stopping at 4th grade, and then them going to another school from 5th and 6th, and then going to 7th and 8th. So I was wondering, have there been ongoing communication with our population to ask them how they feel about perhaps losing another purely elementary school footprint and then going to Baldwin? Cause that's where you guys have more than K through 4 at Baldwin, right? Right. So that's what I'm asking. There's a lot of parents who want their elementary students to be in a purely elementary school setting, and they kind of want that to go through 5th or 6th grade, and our footprint doesn't do that currently. Just something I heard.
I haven't heard that, but I
Okay.
trust you.
No worries.
that you heard
Yeah,
it.
I mean, you know.
And, again, as I was saying, once the architects get involved and we start having those town hall meetings, you be able to get the voice of the citizens. And say you wanna talk to us before then, I know I'm more than front.
You know I sent them to you, right?
I know.
Okay.
Any other questions about Dean?
Do you wanna see if Mrs. Besky has any questions?
Ms. Sebeski, are you there? Hello?
I am, I'm here, thank you, Madam Mayor. Whoever's sitting near the phone, there's a lot of papers moving, so at times it's hard to hear.
That's Robin.
No, I think it's been a good discussion. I'm disappointed that Downey couldn't give us some kind of ballpark that we should be preparing for if, we're supposed to be giving a contract to someone to break ground in, 2 years from, now. It, doesn't give a jurisdiction a very long time to financially prepare for what's likely to be a, probably at least a third higher cost. But that's just, a wild guess, but, I like the discussion. I will say that I think this is what Lisa was just talking about when I served on the school board and we built Baldwin. The discussions with Dean at the time were, what you do it, what we do was, you make it a 4-6 school and make, Mayfield a 4-6 school, and then there you only have 4 elementary schools because you have 2 intermediate schools, but it sounds like you guys are in quite the investigation of trying to figure out what you want Dean to be, and the community input will be very vital in that. So I appreciate you doing that, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for my opportunity to speak.
Dr. Newman has a response.
Vice Mayor,
Yeah.
Sebeski, if you want us to go back to Downey and Scott, he said he didn't wanna take our money. But if you wanna give it to him, we can do that. But we just not think it's a good time.
He's telling you all you need to know right there.
Right.
It wouldn't be worth it
Yeah.
right now.
I agree with Mr. Wolf. I mean, I think that's the message he's sending when you look at, even the buildings that you all recently looked at, a lot of them were completed before these financial implications went into play in construction, or the bids had already gone out and been given to people because the buildings were completed during this epidemic versus necessarily started during that epidemic, but even if they were, their bids would have gone out before. But I do think that that's the message we all need to know, is that a basic building, I know value engineering is important, obviously we've learned that too. But you may not be able to do anything for $62 million in replacement of that building, even if you value engineer it into just basic things, not even some of these wonderful things that you all have the opportunity to see. And, we want the best for the students just like you guys do, so we all need to be thinking about how we manage the money to make that happen for everybody, so. But there's no reason to give Downey, I mean, they should be able to just off the cuff, if there's just an estimate you're asking for, say, it's gonna be 20% more, 30% more, maybe less, we don't know. None of us really know right now unless you put in a contract up for bid.
Ms. Brooks.
I just wanted to speak again to my point about the flexible spaces. That is where, when these situations arise of the inflation and the supply chain issues that we're having, that's where that comes into play. Is, as Dr. Newman said, this is the number that we're working with right now, so that is what we will tell and build. And by using these spaces, we can bring those numbers down financially. So that we use the money that we have without having to go above and beyond substantially what we were given to build our school.
To that point, these schools have green roofs, they have outdoor learning spaces, they use the lobby, for teaching spots, they use every available inch of the schools. They have Doric and Corinthian columns in odd places so that they're teaching, SOL topics, all over the building. It really was quite impressive, and it was a really great use of space.
And I think they've also got a lot of energy saving features added into them that will, in the long run, reduce those costs. And if you're looking at more modern schools and what kind of footprint they have, you really want the school that's got the energy savings built into it, like the rainwater reclamation, all of those things are important factors, and they can, in the long run, bring down costs of continuing to run a school all year.
Any other questions, comments about Dean? So next item.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the purchase of building 8700 Centerville Road. It is the building that we currently, have central offices in and have been there for several years leasing space. And the owner came to us wanting to know if we wanted to purchase, and we considered it, and we do. We think it's the best choice. It's a solid number. Any renovation or building of a new property is gonna cost a lot more than what we could purchase this building for. This building has adequate space and it has room for growth. Our intention would be to use it for some student programs. It's been undecided, but there's lots of options. And we'd like to know what questions you have. We've sent plenty of documentation, answered every question we think that you've had, and would like to know what else there is to answer.
Thank you. Council members, questions?
I'll go. I know one of the options is obviously the police station, and there was an initial cost estimate, of renovations of that was essentially the same as the purchase price of the new building. Have there been value engineering done to that cost estimate, which might?
To the police station?
Mm-hmm.
We have not really looked at those options, as that building, if you look at the plans that we had, would be maxed as soon as we moved over there.
Okay.
So,
What would be next, I'm sorry.
we would be maxed out in space as soon as
Oh,
we
space.
got there.
Okay.
What other questions do you have?
And so buying this building still gets us Dean.
Yeah,
On
it's two
time.
separate things.
On time, good to go.
Yes.
Would disagree with that statement.
That's why I brought that up. So I need to
And
know
why
why
do
we
you-
disagree.
Yeah, why do you disagree?
Well,
He's the-
go there. At the end of the day, I think it's fair to say, and I've talked to each of the council members, regardless of political side, Dean is the number one priority. And the council has frankly raised taxes to accommodate the financial plan that we have for Dean. Taxes are higher than they would have been otherwise. To fund the Dean, the program we put in place, 2 years ago now? I understand what Dr. Newman is saying about the $62 million. But I also understand that's several years out, and we're in a, shall we say, challenging environment. And the fact that $62 million is, in most any likely scenario, gonna be significant, a $62 million building today is most likely gonna be significantly north of that number in the future. I mean, even these, the one was $60-some million, it was built in 2014. And I know you can value engineer, and you can take out this and you can take out that, but at the end of the day, it's all the things you're talking about you wanna have. And there's a significant concern that at some point, this school board, another school board, another administration will come back and say, you know, it's $90 million, and we ain't got the money to pay for it, and we need to raise taxes to do it. And that's not something I will say, if the council will allow me to speak for them, we're prepared to go to that point right now. And therefore then it's like, okay, well, what's the backup to make up any differential in the raise of expenses? Well, let's be honest, it's the school board surplus. And you would be using a significant portion of the surplus you built up in the last 3 or 4 years to fund the differential to purchase this building. And that's a real sticking point. It's a real challenge, because it's, to be honest, it's not about 8700 Centerville Road. I mean, I may have an opinion, but to some degree, y'all's business, y'all do it. But it's coming back and asking for additional monies downrange to pay for school that we all thought we've already paid for once. And frankly, taking the political heat to do it. And that's something that the council has to weigh, not the school board.
So let me ask a question. When we look at projections going out X number of years, we're hearing that our growth will increase. We'll have more students. We're looking to expand programs to improve student access to success, which includes things like expanding CTE. We've got the governor's executive order talking about the teacher shortage and things to do to combat the teacher shortage, such as adding childcare facility for students and staff, adding childcare accreditation programs at the high school level, expanding CTE with additional programs. We don't have space for those things. We also have people asking, well, what about alternative learning for our students? We don't have space for that. How many seats do we have at Independence?
4.
4. And are those seats full? They're full. So we don't have room at Independence for alternative learning. The only alternative learning we really have right now, and forgive me if I'm wrong, is virtual. We also need to look at things like evening school. All of those things are programs we need to enhance the experience of our students and increase the likelihood for successful graduation on time. We don't have anywhere else to put those. Our options are to expand Osborne High School, but if you think about it, how much more expensive is that than purchasing 8700 Centerville Road? We've got those things we have to look at. At the end of the day, what do our students most need?
Well,
And that's when we need to add that space. Now, Dr. Newman has said 62 million, if that's the price tag, that's the price tag. We find a way to stay within that price tag. So I look at it from a standpoint of what our students need.
Oh.
And our students need a space where they can grow and where we can add instructional programs to support them.
And I appreciate that, and again, the challenge here is we're all friends. So, to the outside, this looks like we're not, and we are. I'm gonna challenge one thing on the front side. I've been here 14 years. And every year I've sat in front of a school presentation that talks about enrollment is gonna grow, and enrollment is gonna grow, and enrollment's gonna grow. What's your enrollment today?
Our enrollment today is at 7,500.
7,467, according to the.
7710.
7710. Thank you.
7,467 full-time students, right?
As September 30th, 2022, 7,710.
That's,
not that big
that's
of a
not what came up
difference.
last night, anyway, even that's no growth over 10 years.
We have years.
I've been here and having studies, we're gonna have 10,000 students. Oh, yeah, Scott would sit here and present, the charts and the growth projections. I'm not saying there's not gonna be growth, and I have not my place to get into your laundry on this. I have no problem building the extra space that we did in Baldwin, or extra space in Dean, because it may happen. Is it gonna be a huge number? I don't think that's at all reasonable at this point in time. Our past experience hasn't shown that at all,
Well,
Let me
it's
finish,
not-
let me
okay.
finish, please. This gets back to priorities. The council, and if I can speak for the council, has said, in our mind, the priority is Dean School. Period, end of story, number 1. Everything else is secondary. If you want to change that and have that discussion, that's great. That's a wholly separate discussion. But, and all the points you raise, I don't disagree with. But at the end of the day, there's only so much money and political will to generate the money, and choices have to be made. We thought we made this choice.
Growth or not, Dean needs to be built.
Yes.
Lease or not, we need somewhere to put our central office staff. The building at 8700 Center Road is it's a set price. Dean, we don't know. All we can do is prepare for what we've been given as far as information. Same thing if we went to renovate a space or build a space, moving target. It could be a lot more. I don't think it's gonna be less.
So then let's renew your lease where you're at?
If he doesn't sell to us, he's gonna sell to someone else.
Yeah.
Dr.
this is
Damian, go ahead.
I'm not an elected official, but when someone continuously stress that the council has made Dean a priority, I'm gonna talk to you about making actions speak louder than words. Because when we had that discussion at Baldwin Elementary about the debt service, and it being taken and put it over here to the council, and that we had to follow Mr. Pate's plan. What was the amount, Andy, for year one for that plan to build Dean? It was $120,000. What did we put in as a school division? What did we put in that box, Mr. Wolf? $2.8 million.
$3 million.
So don't say that just the council has
No,
made Dean a priority.
It was
Because
absolutely.
actions say that we have made Dean a priority.
And I appreciate your point, and yes, it was a joint determination, but again, at the end of the day, the differential is, the council went back to the taxpayers. When we sat in the room and determined tax rate, there were extra cents added to the tax rate to help set aside the money for the plan to fund Dean, that otherwise, if we weren't building a new Dean, wouldn't be there. Right?
Do you not believe that we should build a new
I
Dean?
absolutely believe, I've campaigned on it, I'm sitting here talking that we need to build it. My whole point is, we've got to focus on building that first, and that's the priority. And you wanna have a quality facility for the kids, right?
We are not denying that, again,
Yeah.
and that's why I say, when we got the money from the state, the 2.8, we could have done anything with that. Anything, because we just had to fulfill Mr. Pace's plan, but we didn't. We made Dean a priority. So I just ask that when you make comments like the council wants Dean as a priority, that you remember that
Well,
there's two bodies here,
There
and
are.
both have made Dean a priority.
There are, but I have spoken to each of my council members, I have not spoken to any of the school board members who solicited their opinion. I will not deign to speak to the school board.
Chair, you can speak for the board.
Ms. Raquel, go
I
ahead.
have a few questions.
And Ms. Ball as well.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I did have my hand up first.
Okay.
Okay, no, that's okay, just so that Ms. Swab doesn't feel, that, cut in front. So I have a few questions, and I'll start off by saying, I do recognize that both bodies have similar priorities, and Dean being one of those. I think both bodies always wanna put our students first, and I fully, truly believe that with my heart. I think what has become, a challenging discussion is when we talk about how the money is raised for these projects. And the council has the power of the purse and has to go to the people, and we all know that, so I don't wanna talk down to anybody. But for the people who are gonna be watching the video, I just want you to understand that the reason we are talking this way is because it is challenging to keep going back to the population and asking for more money for the same projects that we have been saying they're going to get. And I certainly run on fiscal responsibility, so win or lose, I'm still gonna be at every meeting talking to you about it, okay? So when I'm talking about priorities, and Dean is one of them, and I talked to Mr. Wolf, and I also think teacher pay is one of them, for me, and probably for you, or most people around this table. And we never kinda get to there. We had many conversations earlier this year about why we couldn't bring up certain staff members to the new pay band. So I am struggling with this decision somewhat based on that. I think I did mention that a little bit to, Chair Seaberg when we briefly spoke a few months ago. It's not my place to put my priorities into your discussions on your budget, as I've been told several times, so I try to maintain that balance, right? But since we're at this table, I would like to understand, when you are talking about this building and you are stating to us that there'll be no changes, and there are different businesses in that building, and you want to use the space for classrooms or daycares or other things, you're telling me you won't have to put any more money into renovations of that space down the road?
What we've talked about, and Mr. Hawkins, you might speak to this, is the rents that are coming in on that property now, if we were to take ownership, can be used to put back into the building. Do you wanna add to that, Mr. Hawkins?
So right now, we've got, I think about, I can't remember the exact statistic, but I wanna say 80% of the rents, the people who are leasing space from the building will expire within the next 2 years, which will free up additional space for us and the school board to do, whatever they want to with it, whether it's CTE programs, whether it's daycare, whether it's alternative ed, whatever they want to do with this space. So we're going to continue to contribute the money that we spend now and the rent for the building into a separate fund. And we will take the money from the rents that we have now and will be over $1.5 million. I don't know the exact number right now, but more than $1.5 million that will be set aside in this fund to help provide, needed upgrades to the building. And when I say upgrades, I'm talking about maybe carpet, maybe parking lot replacement, maybe some HVAC type of equipment that has reached the end of its useful life. Those types of things, not significant renovation of the building.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and I guess, just so that you can maybe understand from my perspective how I look at it, and I want to look at this as, and be the biggest cheerleader for it. I am a huge proponent for CTE, and we talked about some of those things, and they're exciting, and I would want them, but I'm also having to be mindful about the cost. So you're saying $1.5 million, that's in rents. Will your portion of the utilities go up in the building? What other things do you have to manage in the building that will come out of that money? Then that money ceases in 2 years. So I think that's why there's a concern of the management of this property. It also comes off the tax roll for the city, okay? There are changes to be discussed that I think aren't necessarily being fully considered. And I won't take up any more time. So.
Whether we are, before Mrs. Sponsor, whether we are in that building or another building, we're still gonna have to pay utilities. Okay, we're still gonna have to pay maintenance of the building. But don't you think, speaking to your concern for fiscal responsibility, buying a building for a set amount rather than renting for many, many more years, putting extra money in, or building a building or renovating another space for a lot more, don't you think it's more fiscally responsible to go after the number that we know is a hard number, that
Well,
we can do it?
You might not like my answer because I've been a renter and a homeowner. So there's a lot of cost of being a homeowner. There's a lot of cost of being a property owner. So there's some costs that you don't have as a renter. So yes, I understand.
We
your
manage,
point.
how many square feet, Andy?
Over 1 million.
Over 1 million square feet in buildings in the city of Manassas. We know how to run buildings. Mrs. Spall, did you have a question or comment?
I just wanna say that our central office was demolished, we've been homeless for about almost 8 years.
We're not homeless.
We're renters, we don't have anything to call our own. It was predicated on the idea that we put central office, which was the police station, on our CIP, and the time is due for that item to happen. I don't think maybe people like the fact that it was a change at the last minute from the police station, but the item is on time and on our CIP. Dean is on time and on our CIP. We haven't made any mistakes yet, and when you talk about putting students first or making our school a priority, I see the police department, the fire department, the museum, the city hall, all having taken precedence. Nobody could understand or predict what happens, in the future, or with these supply chain issues that we were gonna have, this huge inflationary crisis. But our body has stayed true to what we've had on our budget the entire time. We haven't been late, we haven't done anything wrong. And so, the fact that everyone is worried that something is going to happen, yes, the price is probably gonna be a little bit higher, but we're all, as a board, as a school board, dedicated to sticking to a number that we've all agreed on. Every single one of your projects has come in over budget. So we understand you're learning as you go too, but, we're gonna do our best to stick with.
We've had one
Yeah,
comment,
that's
one over budget.
I will take exception to that.
You're done.
I believe I'm done.
Mr. Wolf.
To me, I could sit here and quibble with details of whether you 8,700 or not. The police station, fine. The city's got other uses for that space. That's fine. it's more of a timing circumstance. If we were further down the road with Dean, and we had a price estimate, a design, and therefore a price estimate, and could lock in a number, then that changes the conversation. But we're not, that's not the circumstance we're in today. We're dealing with unknowns where, again, you haven't even decided what kind of school to build, much less what's in the school or anything else. And again, I appreciate Dr. Newman's statement, and you all have lived up to this of, $62 million. But again, I have this nightmare, and none of us may be in the room when it happens, politically, but at some future point, it's, again, well, 62 just became 95. What you gonna do? And we gotta have this, that, and the other thing. Again, it's what we went through with the city hall. Same exact thing, and we were so far down the road, the only logical decision was to move forward. That's the one project that's been over my recollection. But, if you, again, I'll throw this out, the idea out. If you signed a 3-year, 5-year lease and extend your lease term so we get past, get further down the road with Dean, the owner of your building is in the process of refinancing it if he can't sell it. The last thing he's gonna wanna lose is his number one tenant, that's guaranteed public money. Losing you would kill the value of his financing for sure. Robin knows this. To me, that's not the worst option in the world. I understand wanting to have your own space. I understand wanting to have all these things, but the timing isn't right, to me at least, and I think to the council.
I disagree, but I'm gonna let Mrs. Brooks speak and then Mrs. Williams. And then Teresa.
She had her in the.
We'll do
I had
Brooks,
it up before you stopped.
Ellis, okay, Williams.
Okay, you speak about, the fact of locking in prices. By writing a check for this building, we have locked in a price for that building. We are talking about growth of our students. Also, on top of the growth of numbers and population, we also want the growth of the community and those actual individual students. We need some of this space. We need it now. Would we utilize it immediately? No, we have Dean to build. We would use it as it became available, when we needed it, and when funds were available. We did speak of leases that are done in 2 years. There are leases that are not done in 2 years. So we will continue to get revenue. If we were to think about redoing a space, building a space, continuing to lease, prices will continue to go up. And we are then talking about numbers that could impact. Well, now we're locked in at a very low number of Dean, because now we've gotta spend this money for a central office. There's an old adage that, the best time to buy real estate was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. Thank you.
Yeah, I might have missed this figure, but the, current lease for admin, how many square feet are we leasing? It's 2 floors, right? Anybody know?
It's the same as.
So it's half.
I don't know, it's only, I think it's in the presentation that's attached to the agenda.
Okay, so I'll
Something
assume
like
it's half of what,
35,000, something like that, I can't remember.
yeah, 25,000?
No, it's 35, I'm not sure. I got it, it's on the presentation.
That's my
Current is 18,935 square foot. Okay.
Current space used, 18,935.
18,935, correct. So the police station is 22,200. So why wouldn't that be enough room for?
It's because of the total square footage of the whole building as usable space. It's an investment.
The usable, okay, so but you are getting more space if you go to the police station.
2 or 3 times more.
At
Well, not about
Yes,
800.
yes, 800. I thought that we were talking about.
Okay. So the original plan though was to move the school administration to the police station so they can work out of that, correct? That was originally what we were doing with that building, not expanding education. So that was the original plan. That building, the Apple Credit Building, is one of our largest commercial real estate that generates revenue for our city. And we would be taking that away from our city. That's why I don't like this deal. It also is a building that I personally looked at to lease 5 years ago, and my real estate agent said, run, do not go in that building. They have so many issues. Now, maybe some of the issues have been resolved. Some of the issues that, we were told were the windows if the windows have been replaced, then that issue is not there anymore, but they were having a lot of problems with windows. The HVAC system, if that's been replaced, then I could see where maybe that's not an issue. The expense of renovating that entire office building, we don't even know that figure. So you'll have to come back to us for that later. This is a loss of revenue for the city. It's an unknown cost to bring it to what the needs may be. CTE, I have been on the advisory board. I am a big advocate. Some of the facilities, I never understood why more students couldn't go to businesses to learn CTE as opposed to building a mock of a business. I think there's a lot of ways to do that. Also, the building is not on any of our educational campuses. It's actually on the direct opposite side of the city. So the transportation issues, if you're gonna have childcare for students at that building, how in the world are you gonna deal with the transportation of that? And how are you gonna get the CT students to that building if they're gonna use that as an education building? What I was told when I was on CTE, the reason we could not send students out to businesses because they didn't have transportation. So it doesn't sound like a good argument. Maybe the lease could be renewed at the Apple Credit Building for the admin. And we could take a look, I'm opening my mouth probably, take a look at the police station as a CTE center, which is actually on the campus of the school. Or, use that space in a way. That's just a thought, trying to troubleshoot, how can we meet the needs of our schools for the future? That building just is, in my opinion, not a good use for our school system. It's just not in the right place. It's a building that's gonna be a maintenance black hole, from what I'm hearing. And, I think we keep admin there and think about what we can do, get Dean built. Baldwin was built before the police station and the fire station. When you're talking about the schools, that was a big investment and a big project. We did put the schools first. So, that's it.
Mrs. Williams.
A couple things. This purchase is an opportunity for us. We are 10 square miles. We've got a lot of homes, which will also come with a lot of students coming online in the next several years. And we're going to grow. The reality is, for the past 10 years, we've grown almost 7% over the past 10 years. So we will incur growth. The deficiencies of the building, we had an analysis done of the deficiencies of the building, and everything you're talking about is probably correct, and it's right here in the schedule. And the schedule we had shared with City Council during the last joint meeting. And what I think, if we look at big picture, if we can take advantage of this opportunity and have the leases that are beginning, the income, the revenue from now through 2028, we can cover a little over half of the anticipated costs for all these deficiencies: windows, ACs, ventilation systems, fires, it just goes on, windows, doors are on here. It just seems so smart for the city to take advantage of having this revenue take care of those. it's opportunity for growth for us. If we don't take advantage of this opportunity, yes, there are going to be expenses, there will always be expenses if you own a building, but not so, the cost to add to our systems later, we may not have the space, we may not have the 3 acres, this is all 3 acres. We're just trying to foresee what we will need in the future and take advantage of this now. If we would've, as a school system, I wasn't on the board at the time, if we would've paid, I think it was $3 million at the time, years ago, for the central office to go in that building, off of Noakesville Road 28, that was $3 million. So it's just a big picture, trying to save money for our citizens in the long run. All this, everything we're talking about, expanding educational opportunities, it is going to come to a cost later, and we'll have to figure it out later. And this is just an advantage to kind of take care of these savings in the long run, is really what we're trying to do. And it just, in my view, is just such a sound decision.
Tell us what you do for a living again, Mrs. Williams.
Well, this is just common sense. But it makes so much sense to do this now. Capital improvements will cost a lot more money 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and I know I will not be sitting here 20 years from now.
I mean, isn't that the argument though? What you
That's the
just
whole
said?
point.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. If we take advantage of this now,
We're locked
then we
in.
only have to retrofit this
You're
building
missing the point.
later.
But you have room at Osborne to grow.
It's Dean.
We have a lot of students.
We do have room at Osborne to grow
Which
in
you already
between.
But that
the parking
incurs
lot.
its own additional completely unknown costs.
You're taking away 3.22 acres of commercial real estate that's revenue generating. That's to give it to a government building. I always argue Baldwin was at a bad spot. That's like right in the heart of Old Town. Huge revenue generating area. That was before my time.
Baldwin can't be changed because that's a deed restriction to the
Yeah, I know.
property, so.
That was a
To be fair.
different time.
Well,
but
Councilwoman Ellis, what do you see as a solution?
I think you should continue leasing where you are.
And what you called the black hole? Is that what you called it?
The black hole,
The
but you're
property.
leasing, it's not your expense. It's a lease, not an ownership. And then consider doing something with our police station for your expansion of education.
So it's okay to spend money on the renovation, more than $11 million for
I
renovation,
don't wanna
than it is
lose,
to spend to
the
put some-
commercial real estate, 3.22 acres, that's my biggest issue with this, as well as the future cost of the unknown of that maintenance of that building. We know what we're getting with the police station. And it would not be 11.1 million to renovate that Apple Credit building. Probably be 3 times as much.
I do wanna just clarify something, to, board member Spall's point about projects. I definitely share the frustration of all the projects that we've had on the capital improvement plan, but quite honestly, to Miss Ellis's point, Baldwin was first, and regardless of which portfolio the project lies in, all of it comes on the back of our residents. Every single one comes out of the tax revenue that we generate, and that's why I'm so sensitive to these conversations, because I don't want us pitting each other against one another on portfolio, because it's all city resident money, every single cent that we spend. It is not yours, ours, theirs, it's not, okay? So we have to figure it out together without getting frustrated with one another, and I know that's very difficult, and I know that I'm on the way out the door, but today, I feel like we're missing the point of how do we get to a place where we can all feel comfortable? And you guys got to a place where you feel comfortable with this decision, and the council just hasn't been able to meet you there. And our concerns are valid, because there are stage 2 and stage 3 of the next step of Apple Federal Credit Union. There just are.
So I had heard you have to get a property management company to buy this, or I had heard that, is that true?
Oh, I've heard,
So you all will handle all of that, or, cause I
Yes,
heard that.
yes, ma'am, we will not
Okay.
be, have a property
Madam Mayor?
management firm.
Yes, Ms. Tedeschi, so you will not have to do a property management company to do anything, okay, I just wanted to ask that, cause I heard that. Ms. Tedeschi?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a quick question for the school board members. This has been a really good conversation and really good dialogue, and I wanna just say that I really appreciate that as the electeds of the city, that we can sit together and have a conversation that may not be comfortable, but is important to have. I would just like, because listening to this, in Virginia, school boards do not have taxing authority. In a lot of states, they do. So I would just like to have each school board member comment that if you all did have the ability to have taxing authority, like for each of you to comment separately on whether or not you would raise taxes in order to make sure that these other projects all get done, because that is the only thing what's being asked of us from what I'm getting from this conversation. So if each of you could just answer that for me, I'd really appreciate the feedback from each of you, because I know all of you have had a conversation on this more than us as a group. Thank you.
This is Chair Seberg, and, we wouldn't have to raise taxes because we have the money for the building and we're setting aside the money for Dean unless something significantly changed, which can happen with new construction or renovations. But the central office spending would be solid, so we wouldn't need to raise taxes. Next.
Well, we have the funds right now for central office, and central office does not need to be renovated for us to continue to work there. So there wouldn't be a need to raise taxes for that, but I think the subject of whether or not school boards have the power to levy taxes, I don't think that's something that can truly be answered on the fly. That's a conversation that is something we would have to think through, because it's a very different reality than school board members in Virginia deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I would not be able to provide any kind of educated answer, because I would need to understand the background related to it completely. But the bottom line is, we have that money set aside for 8700 Centerville Road right now. The building is move-in ready, we're already there. So there are no unknown current today expenses for 8700 Centerville Road.
Ms. Brooks?
This is Mrs. Brooks, continuing on what Ms. Stevens said. We have no dedicated plans to expand, to renovate, to do anything with this, central office building at Centerville Road. It is an investment so that we have it down the road available to expand when Dean is done, when the time arises, and when projects can be added to the table. So no, we would not need to, nor would I choose to raise taxes.
Carl, you're next.
This is a very interesting conversation. As you see, I'm soaking up both sides' arguments. As a military member, unfortunately, I don't pay property tax. So I feel like it's not fair for me to really answer that question. But for the spirit of the conversation, I do see central office as an investment. We have our bus systems go right past that building. I don't understand why it's viewed like it's on the other side of Manassas on 66. It's right within the scope of our schools. It's adequate space that we definitely can utilize. I don't see a need for paying additional taxes. We plan accordingly and are ready to execute.
I think, as far as taxes go and being responsible to our citizens, I'm a tax-paying citizen as well. That's what makes this purchase so advantageous in my view, is because then we're, like we've been saying, we've paid this money and we will then move on to Dean. Yes, there will need to be modifications in this building years down the road for CTE programs, for perhaps an alternative program, perhaps we could do that earlier than later. I'm just speaking on that's just my personal view right now. Modifications will have to happen at some point down the road if we do not take advantage of this opportunity. We're going to have to do something that's gonna cost a lot more later, and it's going to cost the citizens more later. That's just my view.
Mr. Iqbal here. I concur with Lisa. I feel like I'm ill-equipped to answer the question of would I raise the taxes or not. But one thing I do want to say, without beating a dead horse, is that I was really excited about the potential for the student programs. I feel like that space is something that we really need. If I remember correctly from the first time we viewed the presentation, Mr. Hawkins, the estimate for the purchase of the building was $10,750,000, and to renovate about $11 million, the police station. And if you look at cost per square footage, I mean, you're effectively getting double the space, approximately, in the new building, which would effectively half the cost per square footage. And so, to me, it's always been a no-brainer in a way, and I just, in regards to the students, I feel like they could really benefit from that space. That's all I'm gonna say about it right now.
Mrs. Small here. Community surveys repeatedly tell us that our citizens put our schools at the top of their list of things that they care about. We're trying to put ourselves into a situation where we're gonna immediately generate revenue with this central office situation. So, I think that we've more than committed to sticking with a budget to the best of our ability. I don't know that taxes really need to come up at this juncture.
Thank you all for your thoughtful responses. And my last question would be to you as well, is that I think everyone can agree that Manassas City has a unique student population in comparison, especially to Northern Virginia, but to a lot of the state, in that we have very high numbers of poverty as well as English language learners. And that's our community, and that's okay. Perfectly okay with all of that. But the challenges of we all know it's more costly to educate a child that has not had any preschool, a child that lives in poverty, and a child that English is not their first language. So those are things that I think about when I'm looking at all of this, and the CTE program and all of that is really important for I think, for the students in our school system. But I'd like to know how this investment is going to help us with student success. Because you all have also said in your responses that the CTE program would come down the road, and there's a need for it now. You've got a great person over at the high school who is, getting people involved and doing great things over there. But, this is really in your business, and I apologize for asking the question, but I want to be able to relate to the citizens how when the central office was demolished, I was on the school board then. We didn't know we would ever have another home. We were perfectly fine with renting for the kingdom come if that's what it took, because it was the best decision at the time to make sure that we could have space for students, because we were running out of space and we had to build ballrooms. So that was the resolution, the solution to the problem. So, I don't know if everyone has to comment, but I would like to hear, decisions are all made based on providing opportunities for the student success. And CTE is what I'm getting from that, because clearly the space of the building is more than double what you don't need just for central office. So maybe someone can address that. And thank you again for allowing me to ask the question.
this is Vice Chair Stevens. So you're asking let me make sure I have the question straight in my head. Your question is, how else would 8700 Centerville Road be used to support student success beyond CTE programs? Is that the question?
Yes, pretty much, that is the question. That, and especially in comparison to not having a building that would be on campus like at the police station.
So, we've had a lot of discussions, we've had a lot of conversations, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of thinking aloud about different ways that down the road 8700 Centerville Road can be used. Obviously, nothing is written in stone or even written in pencil right now, because it's all very much so, we could do this, or there's this as a possibility, or there's this as a possibility. I know that off and on I have spoken with folks at Osborne, with our CTE director, some of the things that could be beneficial. Obviously, before we would put anything into place, we would need to determine our exact need. But some of the things that have been thought about, like alternative education, evening school, obviously CTE, blended learning, those really are the top 4 that come to mind. Also, we have students whose ability to attend school is impacted by taking care of younger family members or children of their own. How we could work something out with a childcare facility, and to me that's a very big thing, at some point within the building, so that somehow, and I don't know how it would work out, because like I said, this is all very much so in the spitballing, brainstorming stages. What can we do? When you're really still very much so at a stage where you're just thinking it through, how we could do something to support our students who are parents in having a dedicated childcare facility on site. Now there's even, thinking about, and this is something that would not necessarily happen, but when we were at the VSBA convention, there was a school division, and I have to talk to Dr. Thomas about it because it was very interesting, Hampton City Schools, where they have mental health services. They have mental health services in the schools that are dedicated to student mental health. Somehow, if we had 8700 Centerville Road, and like I said, this is all still in like spitballing, brainstorming stages, how we could add something to 8700 Centerville Road to support student mental health. Maybe, a 1 day a week, a 1 day a month, a 1 day every other week health clinic, dental clinic. All of those different things are all possibilities. Now, I know, Ms. Burkell Green, I know you have your finger up because you're saying, hold my place because I want to say something. These are all just ideas that come to mind when the sky is the limit, but they're all thoughts. So, I hope that answered your question and that I didn't go rambling down the in my perfect world frame of mind.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I mean, I guess that's not exactly what I'm looking for.
Okay.
There's so many things we could do in the city. Our firefighters and police officers with mental health services.
Right.
Health insurance, daycare, these are things that, we have the same kind of issue with trying to get and retain good people and city government too. So my question was more about the fact that we already have to pay so much more than, let's say, a City of Falls church because it costs more to educate a student that is an English language learner. It costs more to educate a student in poverty, and we have high numbers of those. Student success being at the forefront of how we're going to make that happen with the limited, because government funding is not unlimited. I have no doubt that if we gave you guys an unlimited budget, that you all could not come up with some like majorly fantastic things of opportunities for our students. And for some of them, that would be really great. For some of them, that's the furthest thing from their minds because they're trying to survive today and worrying about tomorrow when they get there. It's just a very different environment than in communities where they only have a 20% poverty and they only have, you know, a 15 or 20% English language learner, need. Manassas City was in that place 25 years ago, and, you know, we had the lowest class sizes in the whole region, and we were ranked higher than everybody else because it was a balance. And none of us can change any of that, you know. These are our kids, these are who live here, and this is our community. But I'm just trying to figure out, I know that in July when we met, Dr. Newman told us that Princeton County gave the teachers a 7% raise. You guys could only do 5%. Mrs. Portel Green earlier brought up about the bathtub issue with the salaries and the funds not being there to correct that. So having a new building is, all of these things are important, but student success is what your main mission is, and I know that that's because you all said that in my last question. So if student success is our main mission, these investments need to help us get there. We know that Dean has needed to be replaced. There were not good investments made. There weren't maintenance plans in place before 2010 of our building. If this building has all the problems that Ms. Ellis says that it has, you're taking on a huge problem that could end up being involved in our Dean and requiring total replacement at some point, versus, you know, upkeep like we're being able to do with our other buildings, because we have very good, you all have very good maintenance plans of our buildings. You know, some of the situations you're in are from the evils of the past. So it is what it is, but going forward, student success is student success. How does this currently impact and make sure with our challenging population that we're going to improve graduation rates, that we're going to work on, be able to help with the truancy issue, if we're picking kids all the way over to this building instead of keeping them on campus and building right there where they're staying on campus for these programs. So that's more of my question.
Okay, just for clarification's sake, according to the WABE guide for 2022, which is the Washington Area Board of Education guide, we spend $14,899 per student annually, whereas Falls Church City spends $20,515 per student. So, although
how about Manassas Park, Lisa?
Manassas Park and Prince William County did not participate in the WABE guide. I don't know anything behind that. That's not something I am privy to. But when we look at it, I believe we are also a little bit lower than Prince William County, at least we were in previous WABE guides. So that's just a little side piece of information. But if anybody else wants to add.
Well, I would like to add on just to what you said, because the local source of revenue for Falls Church is 81.5%.
Right.
Manassas City is 44.2%, so.
Right.
It's right here.
Yeah.
Let's be very careful, let's be very careful, let's be very careful here. That's operating, right?
Everything they could ever want, you can get in the city of Falls Church. And that's why I should have said the city of Manassas Park, because we used to be, spend more than the city of Manassas Park or Prince William County. I haven't looked at a WABE guide in 4 years, but prior to that, we did spend more per pupil because of the reasons I just said. They don't have the high, you know, Manassas Park did, that was their closest. But anyway, I was just using it as a frame of reference. I don't think that we're going to be the city of Falls Church. We're never going to be the city of Falls Church for a lot of reasons. So I apologize for bringing that up.
No, that's quite all right. That's not a problem. I was actually kind of chuckling that we aren't Falls Church and that we don't necessarily ever aspire to be Falls Church. I'm quite happy being a Manassas City myself. So that was my only just point of clarification.
I want to get Ms. Fokel Green, because you had your hand up, and I think we've spun our wheels enough on this. At least I've heard enough for tonight. I don't know about anybody else, but I can only speak for myself. And so I think once we hear what you have to say, if anybody else has something pressing to add to the conversation, we can do that. Okay, and then Suzanne has a clarification point. So I think you've given us, I believe, what we've asked for repeatedly. And that was information on how you're gonna get Dean built, which is a priority for all of us at this table. Number one, we agree to that. That is the priority, taking care of those students and getting that new dean built. Dr. Newman, right there. The question is, how can you do that, do this purchase, all that, that's where the rub hit us. So, because we, as I explained when you and I talked, we're the ones that catch the heat. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? It's taxpayer money. Do you increase taxes? That's what Kel Green said again. You know, we're the ones that get the heat. People don't think, when you get a new football field, who do they come to? Blame us. Oh, you did that football field and well, nuts, you know, but that's how it happens. You know, people just don't know how it works. And so we wanted to be able to have all the information that we possibly could to make sure that we could explain and the best we could. And I appreciate your time and taking yet another meeting and sitting down with us yet again to try to help us understand how this will work. And you will not have to come back, there's no guarantees. But our goal is for you not to have to come back later and say, we need more money or whatever. That's the rub, that's it, that's the magic question. So, sorry, Mr. President, I went off on my tangent, so,
No,
go
that's
on.
okay. I mean, I'm just gonna circle back to, you know, the staffing of whatever we choose to do there is also another increase. And to me, you know, when we're talking about staff to fund night school or staff to fund this, that, and the other, those are just more expenses. And I am very sensitive to the fact that some of our teachers, some of our most tenured teachers are not on the same pay band as the newcomers. And it's something that they're upset about. And I've heard about it for 4 years. I've not sat in this seat for 4 years, but I've heard about this, and we've talked about it, and you say you don't have the reoccurring, capital to put them on that plan, but we always say paying our people is very important. And so when we're talking about these priorities, that is a priority that I hear is important, and I don't see in your budget. And so since I'm on the way out the door, I'm gonna take this opportunity to say that you have these priorities that are not bad, but there's also other priorities that may be higher up on the list of things to do. If somebody were to say, I wanna raise taxes to pay your teachers, I think almost everyone in the city would be like, all right, we'll deal with it. But if you say, I wanna raise your taxes to, you know, renovate a building that we bought, we're just gonna pretend we're in the future, you know, 5 years ago, and now we wanna put these programs in there, and then we have to do all these other things, that's just an unknown of whether there's support for that or not. It's unknown whether there is a student population for that, and it's unknown where we're going to be. And so that is just where I stay stuck, and I'm not sure this is the right decision.
Point of clarification.
Okay, a couple points of clarification. Yes, staff salary is very important to us. That's why it's 85% of our budget, if not more. But it needs to be a separate conversation, because right now we're talking about capital improvement projects. I wanted to clarify about the maintenance and conditions, and Ms. Ellis, to your point about your realtor told you it was a bad building or something. I think a realtor telling you something and us doing a physical inspection and documenting what needs to be done is two totally separate things, and I wouldn't give any credit to that. It's hearsay. But we know what needs to be done. We would take the rents in to correct what needs to be done and make improvements that we need to have, not costing taxpayers any money. And you guys are gonna take the heat on that, because when citizens find out that you're spending more for a moving target than it would to purchase a building, don't you think you'll get heat on that?
No.
I made my point.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Newman, did you have anything to add, sir?
Absolutely not.
I do. Okay, well, we will, get back to you. And, discussions will continue. Ms. Wolf, you had something? Okay. Thank you for giving us the information.
You're welcome.
To move forward somehow, and, presenting the dean outline too, cause that was for me very, very good. So we do wanna get that slide. I mean, I know we passed it around. And some people-
It's public now.
Oh, okay, so it is on there, and so.
Do we need to make a move to adjourn? School
I
board
guess we
and
do
city
make a
council?
motion for them to adjourn.
Why don't you do a recess and then adjourn?
Oh, okay, alright, so I'll call us into recess at this time, so then that way.
Okay.
Can I get a motion for the school board?
Yep, Chair, can I
Thank
make,
you.
Can I move that we adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Stevens, second by Mrs. Brooks, that the school board of the city of Manassas adjourn. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and we are adjourned. Thank you very much, city council and Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chair Bird. You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, are you recessing? I have a question. Okay, I have a question for you.
Are we in recess? Yes. Thank you.
I'm gonna come this way. Sorry, I'm gonna cut in front of you, so sorry. Thank you. Thank you.